So the origin of COVID, did people or nature open? So this is from Nicholas Wade. He's a science writer, editor, and author who has worked on the staff of Nature, Science, and for many years, the New York Times. So he came out in the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, and this was the big bombshell. He said the virus that caused the pandemic is known as SARS-2 for short. As many people know, there are two main theories about the origin. One is that it jumped naturally from wildlife to people. The other is that the virus was under study in a lab from which it escaped. It matters a great deal which is the case if we hope to prevent a second such occurrence. It's documented that researchers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology were doing gain-of-function experiments designed to make coronaviruses infect human cells and humanized mice. This is from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. It is documented that they were doing gain-of-function research experiments at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That's what Fauci was just asked about. According to the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, it is documented that that was happening. Fauci says that we don't ever fund that, and if we do it right. This is exactly the kind of experiment from which a SARS-2-like virus could have emerged. Researchers were not vaccinated against the viruses under study, and they were working in the minimal safety conditions of a BSL-2 laboratory. So escape of a virus would not be at all surprising. But if you said this before, because of Trump derangement syndrome, you were called crazy, a nut job, you should be censored, you were a conspiracy theorist, crazy conspiracies. Why? Because Trump said it might have happened that way. So everybody else is like, Kent, we got to discredit anything Trump says. Go against science, doesn't matter. In all of China, the pandemic broke out on the doorstep of the Wuhan Institute. The virus was already well adapted to humans as expected for a virus grown in humanized mice. It possessed an unusual enhancement, a furin cleavage site, which is not possessed by any other known SARS-related beta coronavirus. When I first saw the furin cleavage site in the viral sequence, I said to my wife, it was the smoking gun for the origin of the virus, said David Baltimore, an eminent virologist and former president of Caltech. So when he looked at the virus, he was like, brr. The features make a powerful challenge to the idea of a natural origin of SARS-2. So what he said when he looked at it, it was obvious that the origin of the virus was not from nature. That's what this says. The feature makes a powerful challenge to the idea of a natural. So it wasn't from a natural origin that this was created. That's what the president of Caltech, an eminent virologist, was saying when he first took a look at it. All it took was one look at the virus, and this guy knew that it was most likely created in a lab. One look. When he first looked, president of Caltech, eminent virologist, said, all it took was one look, and I knew that the idea of this being of natural origin should be challenged. Powerful challenge. Proponents of natural emergence have a rather harder story to tell. The plausibility of their case rests on a single surmise, the expected parallel between the emergence of SARS-2 and that of SARS-1 and MERS. But none of the evidence expected in support of such a parallel history has yet emerged. No one has found the bat population that was the source of SARS-2, if it indeed it ever infected bats. No intermediate host has presented itself, despite an intensive search by Chinese authorities that included the testing of 80,000 animals. There is no evidence of the virus making multiple independent jumps from its intermediate host to people, as both SARS-1 and MERS viruses did. So there's no evidence that it emerged naturally. There is no evidence from hospital surveillance records of the epidemic gathering strength in the population as the virus evolved. There is no explanation of why a natural epidemic should break out in Wuhan and nowhere else. There is no good explanation of how the virus acquired its furin cleavage site, with no other SARS-related beta coronavirus possesses. So this is a unique thing to this coronavirus. No other virus possesses this, nor why the site is composed of human-preferred codons. Don't even know what that is. The natural emergence theory battles a bristling array of implausibilities. So all you need to know is that this chief smarty pants guy, former president of Caltech and eminent virologist, says the natural emergence theory doesn't look likely. In fact, it seems implausible. And so that's, to me, that's why Fauci seems to be shitting his pants and sounding like a politician. Yes. And I hope I showed you that video that shows you he's a proven liar and will lie at the drop of a hat. And no one will hold his feet to the fire for doing so in establishment media. Because now it's politicized. Coronavirus was politicized. It got politicized by Trump and by the people who oppose Trump. They both politicized it.
If I was to guess, this virus started transmitting somewhere in September, October in Wuhan.
September, October.
That's my own view. It's an only opinion. I'm allowed to have opinions now. I am of the point of view that I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped. Other people don't believe that. That's fine. Science will eventually figure it out. It's not unusual for respiratory pathogens that are being worked on in a laboratory to infect a laboratory worker.
It is also not unusual for that type of research to be occurring in Wuhan. The city is a widely known center for viral studies in China, including the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which has experimented extensively with bat coronaviruses.
It is a remarkable conversation I feel like we're having here, because you are the former CDC director and you were the director at the time this was all happening.
For the first time, the former CDC director is stating publicly that he believes this pandemic started months earlier than we knew, and that it originated not at a wet market, but inside a lab in China.
These are two significant things to say, Dr. Redfield.
That's not implying any intentionality. It's my opinion, right? But I am a virologist. I have spent my life in virology. I do not believe this somehow came from a bat to a human, and at that moment in time, the virus that came to the human became one of the most infectious viruses that we know in humanity for human-to-human transmission. Normally when a pathogen goes from a zoonotic to human, it takes a while for it to figure out how to become more and more efficient in human-to-human transmission. I just don't think this makes biological sense.
So in the lab, do you think that process of becoming more efficient was happening? Is that what you were suggesting?
Yeah, let's just say I have coronavirus that I'm working on. Most of us in the lab, we're trying to grow a virus. We try to help make it grow better and better and better and better and better and better so we can do experiments and figure out about it. That's the way I put it together.
It's a pretty extraordinary conversation.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty extraordinary conversation. And all I remember is everybody saying you're a conspiracy theorist, you're crazy, you're a nut if you said that this virus originated in a lab, that it was man-made. You're a nut. You're a conspiracy theorist. So that's just, again, part of the culture of you can't say, you can't have bad idea. You have to have all these thought crimes. You can't think bad things. Someone has a bad thought. Someone thinks something different than the establishment does. We got to put a scarlet letter on them, call them a conspiracy theorist, crazy kook. Oh, but it's the head of the CDC, former head of the CDC, the head president of Caltech. You mean it's not just Rand Paul? It's not just Rand Paul, who is odious for many reasons. But so is Dr. Fauci. And this is what
you don't need to pick one.
That's right.
You can just be committed to trying to get the truth. You don't need to pick one of those two, or anyone else for that matter.
That's right. So our hands are tied here at our show at YouTube because we're not allowed. I mean, I wouldn't have been allowed to bring that guy on my show and say that unless it first aired on CNN. I wouldn't be allowed to. The author of this article, if this didn't appear in the bulletin of the Atomic Scientist and I just was interviewing that guy, they wouldn't allow me to have that guy say that. So I can't do any original reporting on the coronavirus like I do original reporting on Syria, Venezuela, myriad other things, Libya, Russiagate. I can't do any original reporting on it because they'll just take it down and kill our channel because it's not approved. And we live in an era of censorship. So I had to wait for it to be published other places. I could never bring up these questions. But anyway, there it is. Now even CNN is saying it. And but 99. I'm going to say half the country has no idea that Dr. Fauci is not to be trusted, at the very least, and we should be skeptical of everybody. Again, be skeptical of the government, and that doesn't mean be anti-science. That's not what that means at all. That means be skeptical of guys in government who are trying to cover their ass. That's all. That's all that says. And by the way, science is peer-reviewed. Scientists are skeptical of other science. That's why they have peer review. You have to subject it to testing now and blah, 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 blah. Okay?
I mean, that's how it works.
That's how science works.
It's trial and error. It's exploration.
Right.
It evolves. That's what it is.
So there you go. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.